So believe it or not, we are in Wyoming and this is the first time ever we've washed the trailer. So that's true, actually. That was the first time ever we've washed the trailer. It was a momentous occasion and we were very happy to do it.
It was long overdue.
So we're currently in the Grand Tetons, which you can see behind us. Christina found probably the most beautiful campsite we've had yet. It's at the summit of Shadow Mountain. It's a pain in the ass to get to, but it's absolutely gorgeous.
Totally worth it.
But before this, we were in Lander, Wyoming.
So we decided to stop in Lander, Wyoming because it was just a great midway point between Denver and the Tetons. It was essentially just a place to break up the drive, but it ended up being one of our favorite stops yet.
So the day we got to Lander, I hit up my brother just randomly and I was like, what's going on? And he knew Lander, and so he told us where to go. We went to Lander Bar. It was an awesome spot. We were surprised by live music, great beer, great ambiance. So our first night in Lander, we were like rocking at this bar.
I really appreciated that they had a local musician from the area playing there with his band, and you could tell all his friends and family were there to enjoy, and the whole place was packed. And it was a great show. Maybe I'm biased because I haven't seen a lot of live music lately, but I was definitely dancing. So one of the things Lander is known for is being near Sinks Canyon, which is host to a geological phenomenon called the Rise in the Sinks. The Poposia River runs through Sinks Canyon, and in one part of the canyon, the river runs down into this crevice and disappears completely under the road. And then about a quarter mile down the road, it reappears again as this spring, where you can see tons of fish living, and it seems like it kind of comes out of nowhere. So we had to check that out while we were there.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see the river just flow into this cave and disappear. And it actually stays underground for 2 hours, which is strange because if the river was above ground, it would have taken less time to flow over that period. Also, more water comes out at the rise than went into the sinks. So there's some weird stuff going on here.
Yeah. It's a mystery what exactly the water does while it's underground for those 2 hours until it reappears. But they hypothesize that the water is traveling through lots of cracks and fissures in the underground, and then it just kind of all comes together and reappears in this miraculous way. The first hike we did in Lander was to Poposia Falls. Now, when we were in Lander, it was 99 degrees almost every single day, and we were desperately looking for a place to cool off. And we heard that at the top of Poposia Falls, they had a series of swimming holes and a natural rock water slide. So we decided to take this hike, and we don't regret it one bit. It was definitely one of the most beautiful hikes we've been on. And the end result at the end of the Poposia Falls, where they have the swimming holes, was such a special place.
Yeah, we got up there and we had it all to ourselves all day long. It was insane. Like, if this feature was in New England, it would be swamped all the time. We just posted up and we swam. It was freezing cold. I convinced her to get in there.
Yeah, he got me in. So this is all melt water, like frozen snow melting down. So it's freezing water, and he got me in there.
So the upper falls are known as this natural slide where the locals will slide down. And I looked at it and I was like, I don't know. Come to find out, it was running pretty high at the time, so they didn't recommend that you do it. So I'm glad we didn't take a chance. But the pool that we were hanging out at had like a little spot that was very similar, more low key.
It's a mini slide.
So we like slid down into the water, and it was such a great time.
Another really special thing about this hike for me was the amount of wildflowers that we saw. I had never been out in the high country to see wildflower season, and the entire walk up to the falls was just covered in wildflowers. All these different colors. It was like a dream. I had never really seen anything like it. And so I was just like, sniffing all the flowers, sniffing all the flowers, and smelling everything. You know how I am with me and my candle biz.
She's like a bloodhound out there.
Gotta sniff everything. But and we came home with a really beautiful bouquet of wildflowers. So one of the great tricks when you're camping and it's really hot is to go up higher in elevation. And Lander also happens to border the Shoshone National Forest. So if you drive just a little bit past where the Poposia Falls hike starts, it takes you up these really crazy switchbacks and into the Shoshone Forest, where at the top of these mountains are mountain lakes. And so there's a series of lakes up there, the first one being Fry Lake. And we spent a couple of days there, I think.
We ended up the second time bringing the grill up there, and we did dinner up top because it's like you always have to leave when the most beautiful part of the day is happening, right?
Yeah.
So we were like, we don't want to waste this. So we did dinner up there, and it was amazing. I think what blew my mind was when we were actually leaving and we looked back and you saw the campfire sort of dotting the shore, and it was just a beautiful scene.
This particular lake offered dry camping, and you could tell it was a local favorite spot. There were lots of people camping there for the week, and man, we were a little jealous. We were like, oh man, if we didn't need to be in town for whatever reason, like we would totally be camping up here.
Yeah, we logged that spot for future reference.
In the noggin.
So while we were in Lander, we stayed at Mountain Range RV Park. It was brand new. They were still building their main clubhouse area where they had laundry and everything. But I have to say, best Wi-Fi award goes to Mountain Range RV Park.
Yeah.
It was incredible. All week, I was just happy to be online, secure, and great Zoom calls. So thank you, Mountain Range RV Park. This was an outlier compared to the other campgrounds we've been to. Most of them are just enough to like load the Wi-Fi name. This place was reliable, so you guys are doing it right. We're gonna leave you a Google review, I promise. So after Lander, we headed to the Grand Tetons and found this amazing campsite on Spread Creek. It had everything. The river, the wildflowers, we could have fires again. There's nothing like waking up in the morning, set up your yoga mat and just like crushing a half hour of yoga with like this beautiful stream going by you. It was amazing. We had to pinch ourselves, I think, every day we were at that site.
I kept saying, like, if we ever had to set up somewhere permanently, I want it to be next to a creek.
And since we were coming from Denver, where we weren't able to have fires, we were really grateful to do that. So every day I would go out and scavenge for firewood, and I would have to cross this little creek that was by our campsite. And to make it easier, I ended up building a little bridge across the creek so we could get firewood easier and bring it in. So hopefully that's something that campers in the future can use as well.
That's one thing we try to do at every campsite we go to. We always try to leave it a little bit better than how we found it for the next people that hopefully get to enjoy it. So now, whoever crosses that creek hopefully won't fall in like I almost did.
They'll do it safely. It could be anything from, building the fire pit a little bit nicer or picking up trash, just whatever we can do to improve the site for the future users and make it more beautiful. So we went into Jackson one night, had dinner, went to a bar, and we were walking around, and I totally spaced on this. I don't know how I did, but Teton Gravity Research is based here. So we went to their store and checked it out, and they have a movie theater there. So we went in there and watched a ski movie, and it was awesome. It was the first time we've been to a theater since the pandemic, and it wasn't like a traditional like AMC movie theater. It was like Teton Gravity Research's theater.
While we were here in the Tetons, I also found out that my friend Maria was here in town, and so we had to meet up in Jackson for some dinner and drinks. And I can't tell you how good it was to see a friend again. I actually cried when I got to hug her for the first time. Being able to vibe with your friend again, and it's not going to be the last time because we're going to go see Maria again in Portland, and I'm just so looking forward to that. So one of my jobs on this trip is to scout out our sites, especially our boondocking sites wherever we go. So I'm always looking out for which sites have signal so that Jesse can work. And from all the research that I could do, it seemed like these sites here in the Tetons had signal, but unfortunately, when we got to them, we couldn't find any. And I scoured hours. I think I spent 6 hours I spent 6 hours between 2 different days searching sites, just testing signal at all of them, and I couldn't get anything. So this is when you got to get creative and kind of just roll with the punches, and that's what Jesse's so great at.
It's a cell phone coverage equivalent of Antarctica here. Luckily, I was able to find a place at Coulter Bay. Their visitor center has Wi-Fi. So I posted up at the visitor center, I think every day. Like I was there today, previous days. I would just post up out there and work from the picnic tables. And it was hilarious because like every day people see me coming back. So I'm like, hey, Jerry, how you doing? And people like asking me about like how to log on. I feel like I'm friggin' the IT guy for Coulter Bay these days. So that's the only place where I've been able to find a reliable signal. Unfortunately, it's an hour from our campsite, but it's the most beautiful commute I've ever done.
Yeah.
I'm like passing bison, driving by the Tetons here. So it's out of this world.
So in the Tetons, unlike a lot of other public lands where you can stay 14 days, their limit here is 5 days. And that's just because it's so popular. So we had to find a second site to move to halfway through the week. I got some tips that Shadow Mountain was a great place to look at. So I came up here and I drove all the way to the top of this mountain to find this site. It is slim pickings here. It is a hot commodity, and for good reason. I mean, do you see this view? It's incredible.
Yeah, the fire pit's right here.
But anyways, I drove all the way up to the top of this mountain and I snagged this site, and I went back to tell Jesse about it, and I was like, man, I hope he doesn't kill me for making him drive the trailer all the way up this very dusty dirt road. But it worked out because it's gorgeous, and as you can see, it's like a wildflower garden up here. I mean, I wake up every morning and I just like want to spin around like Snow White and start singing. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is probably one of the coolest sites on the mountain for sure. There's like a little nook behind the trailer that's really cool, and then we have this amazing view with this like wildflower garden here. Essentially, it just rained about 15 minutes ago, so that's the only way we were able to film here. Otherwise we would have been swamped with mosquitoes right now.
They're so bad.
They're really bad here. That's another thing about Wyoming. You have terrible cell signal and the mosquitoes are brutal, so just keep that in mind. But if you have a moment to like be outside and appreciate it, it's so worth it. It's probably been the most beautiful state we've been to so far.
Yes, it's dramatic. It is a dramatically beautiful state. And I think one of the things that makes Wyoming really fun to visit is that there's not a lot of people here. So you really get to experience nature and feel like you're alone a little bit more, which is oftentimes ruined when you're at more popular state parks or national parks. And even though the Tetons is quite popular, you still can carve out like these amazing, beautiful, serene places.
Yeah, a lot of people are drawn into Yellowstone, so I feel like that kind of cleans out the Tetons a bit.
Them out.
People kind of flow through it to get to Yellowstone, so it keeps the Tetons low key.
The reason the Tetons were on our list for this trip was because about 2 years ago, when Jesse and I did our very first road trip out west together, we actually did Yellowstone and we drove through the Tetons, and we were only here for 1 day. We only got one afternoon on Jackson Lake, and it was a beautiful day, but I was also super sick. Like, we had both had really bad colds, and I tried to make nachos that came out way too spicy, and I somehow managed to get like the hot seeds in my eyes and like up my nose from blowing my nose.
Well, because you were just blowing your nose while you're cooking, and you're just smearing all that heat on your face.
It was a hot disaster, and I remember just walking out onto beautiful Jackson Lake and being like completely in awe of it, but also like completely delirious from all the medication and jalapenos up my nose, and I just passed out on the lake.
So she passed out on the lake, and right on the shoreline. It's like this rocky shoreline. And so I was sitting there just kind of like minding my own business. And the way she was like laying on the ground, it looked like she was dead. There was like nothing under her, and she was just like on her back, like with her arms like this. And so these people were walking by like, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm sitting next to this woman who looks dead. It was not a good look. So we knew we had to redeem ourselves.
I had to
do Jackson Lake right. So we had 1 day where we did a picnic on Jackson Lake, and it was awesome.
Yeah, right? I had to redeem myself. I made tostadas, and they were perfect. And we both went out swimming that day. It was awesome. I have this like little floaty that I bought for like $6 somewhere. But it's the best $6 I've ever spent. I can blow it up, put a beer in it, and like kick and paddle my way out into the middle of the lake and just like sit there with nothing but the beautiful Tetons in front of me. That was like one of my moments this trip. I was speechless.
So one day when we were commuting down the mountain here, we got stuck behind this bus. And I was looking at the bus, and they have a solar setup on the roof. And I was like, that's pretty DIY. I recognize that bus. Since we were tailgating them, I was kind of a dick. They pulled off to let us by, and we pulled up the window, and it was our friends from the Luna in Wonderland Festival in San Diego. Like, what are the chances? Like, the Grand Tetons, this national park is 310,000 acres. And, like, we ran into people that we met in San Diego.
Met them once.
One time. And we camped out near them, and we got good vibes. And so we were like, oh, like, everybody freaked out. And we pulled over, and we, like, exchanged ideas and places to go, and it's just really cool to like run into a friendly face again.
So one of my bucket list things out here in the Tetons was to take a kayak out on Lake Jenny. I had heard it was beautiful, and I really just wanted to be able to get out on the water somehow here. So one afternoon we took the kayak out to the boat launch at Lake Jenny,
and we tailgated at the boat launch. We had a little picnic, blew up the kayak, and then took it out on the lake. So our goal was to paddle across the lake to some hikes that would take you up to waterfalls and into the canyon. But as we neared the shoreline on the other side, we noticed this beach, and nobody was there, and it was absolutely incredible. It was probably one of the most beautiful beaches I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was like this little oasis, as I was calling it, of pure white sand, and it had these tropical vibes, and you were able to see the Tetons behind you and all of Jenny Lake in the valley in front of you. And the water was just crystal clear.
And on one side you had Jenny Lake, and on the other one was a river flowing down from the mountains into Jenny Lake. So it was crazy. You could be in Jenny Lake swimming around, and then you'd walk around to where the river kind of came out, and the water temperature change was probably like 20 or 30 degrees. You could have one leg in freezing cold water and the other one in like perfectly warm water.
Yeah, we just hung there for a couple hours, wasting our time.
Yeah, we got lost there. We just posted up.
I think, so there's a shuttle that goes back and forth across Jenny Lake to take most people, from one end to the other to go to the hikes. And I think they were just watching us the whole time, being like, who are these crazy people?
I couldn't believe nobody else was there. This was like an incredible spot. So eventually we had to get our shit together, and we paddled to the shoreline and got off the boat. We stowed it in the woods, and then went onto the dock and talked to one of the stewards that was helping people off the boat. And he gave us some good tips on hikes right off the dock there.
So the two short hikes that you can do are to Hidden Falls and Inspiration Point. To Hidden Falls, it's about a half a mile, and it takes you up to this gorgeous waterfall in the middle of the canyon.
It's probably like 80, 90 feet. It's huge.
Yeah, and it's one of those waterfalls where when you're standing there, you can just feel it like spraying you, and the area around there is like a good 10 degrees lower in temperature. So continuing from there, you go up a little further, and you get to this point where you can see the entire lake and valley.
And the interesting thing too is there aren't a lot of like markers for this, but if you turn around and hike back towards the canyon, you get this incredible view of the Tetons. And we were there during sunset, and it just like blew our minds. It was just awe-inspiring seeing the valley sort of like reflecting the sun. It was incredible. So by this time it was getting pretty late, and we could see some bad weather approaching. So we were like, we got to get back in our kayak and get the hell across the lake again. So we sort of scampered down from our hikes, jumped in the kayak, and started paddling. We probably were out there for 2 minutes, and we ran into these fishermen, and they were like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, yeah, we're going back across the lake. And they're like, you see those whitecaps out there? That's going to be a rough time. And they cautioned us to not do it. I think they warned us to not paddle back. And I was like, we'll be fine. We'll stick to the shoreline. And man, it was really rough.
It was rough. I put my brave face on, and I kept it together. I am not usually one who's like super comfortable in a watercraft. I've only like just begun getting comfortable with Jesse as my
captain.
I don't even know the lingo yet.
We were very lucky that the wind was at our backs.
Mhm.
So I just kept that kayak pointed downwind and we were able to sort of ride the waves back to the boat launch. But had it been the other way around, we wouldn't have made it home. The crazy thing is, right after that conversation with those fishermen, we looked back at the beach that we'd been on before and there was a moose just hanging out right around the corner,
Yeah.
just munching, having a little dinner. And it was the biggest moose I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'd never seen a moose up that close.
I was trying to imagine what it would have been like if we were like tanning on the beach and this moose just walked up. Like where else would that happen, you know?
I think we finally figured out the name of the beach.
Moose Beach?
Moose Beach?
Moose Beach. I guess that's what we're gonna call it. So one of my concerns about this site was that the road is really dusty and it's this fine dust. So I was always worried that if it started raining, we wouldn't be able to get up here or we wouldn't be able to get down from here. So on my way back from work today, I was hauling ass to get up here because there were dark clouds in the sky. And luckily I made it up here before the rain started. When I got up here, Christina was like, let's grill. And I was like, are you looking at the clouds right now? But we were like, you know what, screw it. So we put the awning out, set up the grill, and it was awesome. We had a little grill in the rain. It was sleeting.
It was sleeting.
Yeah, it was. So the weather here changes really fast. I
Yeah.
guess that's the moral of the story. But you just got to make the most of it, you know?
Yeah, and dinner came out delicious.
Yeah, it was the hot Caesar, the grilled Caesar.
Yeah, grilled romaine Caesar.
Yeah, hit the spot. So that wraps up our Wyoming stint, and now we're headed to Emigrant, Montana, where my brother works on a ranch. So we're gonna meet up with him, get some family time. I've got a week off after the 4th of July, so that's gonna be amazing. We're gonna on a backpacking trip, which we're gonna film, which should be exciting for you guys. So yeah, looking forward to Montana, and we'll see you guys there.